Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you. I'm very happy to hear that folks in the European Parliament are rethinking wind energy. This is something that we have been doing a lot of work on in the United States. Thank you to the member of the European Parliament, Mr. Nissinen, Johan Nissinen, for inviting my commentary. I would love to give you some hopeful news, some encouragement. We're not obviously completely there yet, but there's been some very important progress lately in the United States in terms of exposing the environmental consequences and the economic costs of wind energy. We've been involved in exposing the role of the wind industry on the east coast of the United States in causing an increase in whale deaths due to the high decibel sonar, which is in violation of US laws and has been done to map the ocean floor, as well as the impact of increased boat traffic, which has resulted in more whales dying, significant increase, as well as a cover-up by the government agencies that are supposed to be monitoring this. We have two very strong pieces of science. There will be congressional hearings in the United States this fall. And all this is coming at a time when the wind industry is obviously suffering significantly because its own costs are so high. Wind energy is a highly inefficient form of energy. It requires somewhere between 1 to 2/3 of its total cost to be subsidized. The United States has put a huge amount of money into wind energy for over 30 years, and it still requires more and more subsidies, proving the underlying inefficiency of the technology. The problem with wind, like all renewables, is that they're energy dilute. And so you have to spread wind collectors over a very large area. We've saturated most of the land areas of the United States, and that's why there's this big push to go offshore. If I could say a couple of hopeful words, encouraging words to all of you that are challenging the orthodoxy on wind energy in Europe, I would encourage you to also look into the environmental impacts. I think sometimes people emphasize the economic inefficiencies of wind energy, but the environmental impacts are just as serious, and I think they're more heartfelt by people when you see dead whales, you see the dead birds, the raptors, in Germany, I know there's been a number of lawsuits that have blocked wind energy production. I believe that's probably the case across Europe. And I think it's very important because I think people quite understandably want to spend more money on energy if we think it's going to protect the environment. If the energy is not going to protect the environment and have a negative impact on the environment, then I think people don't want to support it. So I think that the environmental issue is very important. And that if you just emphasize the economic issue, I think people might get the wrong impression that you don't care about the environment, or that you don't think it's worth spending money to save the environment. And I think most people do, and rightly so. We want to save wildlife and other endangered species around the world. People want to do this. Nations are committed to this with good reason. And so we should, I think, embrace and have a new vision of conservation that emphasizes natural gas and nuclear in particular. And the reason for that is that they're energy dense. They are comparatively cheap, and they're also cleaner. They're decarbonizing, they reduce air pollution. A lot of fears about nuclear that are unmerited. I've given so many talks on it that people will have to look on YouTube to find those. And you can also see why renewables can't save the planet, which is a TEDx talk I gave. It actually has more views now than my nuclear talks. So, thank you for your work in raising serious questions about the expansion of wind energy in Europe. And I encourage you, I think, keep in mind the economics of wind energy are terrible, and that we need to make the environmental case against wind, not just the economic case. I think if you combine those two things and combine it as well with a positive message for abundant natural gas and nuclear, which are both reduce carbon emissions and are the basis of civilization and a way to avoid environmental impacts on the landscapes, I think it's a winning strategy, and we should stick with it. And if we get our movements organized and energized, I think that's what will happen, and we will finally see an end to this atrociously inefficient and environmentally degrading technology. Thank you again. for listening, and good luck to all of you. And please stay in touch on X, formerly Twitter, and on Substack. Please subscribe today, which is just public.substack.com, so you can get our regular communications and research reports. Thanks so much.